Grandma Elizabeth comments that even without magic, mystical abilities, or advanced technology, she managed to have a simple and happy life. Her words are full of nostalgia and pride, reflecting the memories she treasures deep in her heart. This leads her to remember the moment she met young Lepping, an ordinary man who would soon become the love of her life. Their first encounter was as peculiar as it was amusing. She, impulsive as always, decided to attack him by throwing a tomato while mocking him shamelessly. However, Lepping did not hold back. With unexpected speed, he threw water at her, drenching her completely, and accompanied his revenge with a mocking expression that made Elizabeth unable to help but smile. Amid games, quarrels, and glances filled with complicity, what began as an exchange of insults turned into something deeper. That's how, without realizing it, love was born. Sooner than Elizabeth had imagined, they both decided to marry. Their life as a couple was marked by joy and peace, though they also faced challenging moments. One of those challenges came with the birth of their child, a little one who filled their days with new experiences. She fondly remembers how they took turns caring for him, cleaning him, and attending to his needs, learning together what it meant to be parents. Time passed, and that little boy grew up. One day, now an adult, he left the family home to start his own life. Although his departure left their lives a bit quieter, Elizabeth and Lepping did not feel sad. "We had each other," says the grandmother with a warm smile, recalling those days when their love grew even stronger. For them, it wasn't found in extraordinary powers or technological advances, but in the small moments shared, the laughter, and simply walking together along life's path. Back in the present, she reflects on the fleeting nature of life. Parents will leave, children will grow, and in the end, the one who will always be by her side will be Lepping. Life is too short, and everything happens in the blink of an eye, leaving us barely enough time to appreciate what truly matters. At that moment, everyone's attention is captured by a special broadcast appearing on the screen, Lepping's inner monologue. The scene is unexpected, and he is shown on camera, a mix of nervousness and sincerity, confessing that, of course, he likes her. Moments later, Lepping delves deeper into his thoughts and expresses something even more revealing. If Elizabeth could be his girlfriend, it would be simply wonderful. It's a declaration that not only disarms the audience, but also plants a seed of hope in those who have been following their story. In another scene, Elizabeth watches as Lepping pleads with a mix of vulnerability and determination for her to return to his side. This gesture leads her to reflect deeply. While seeing his sincerity, she understands something that had remained hidden in her heart. If these are Lepping's thoughts, it means that, for a long time, he has also felt the same way about her. Meanwhile, the audience witnessing these confessions can't contain their excitement. Amid cheers and emotional comments, they declare that, although Lepping has always appeared as a reserved man, he is also clearly passionate. However, just as the projection reaches its emotional climax, it abruptly ends, leaving viewers frustrated. "This is a mistake!" some exclaim, as this trailer only leaves them wanting more. Suddenly, the tribal version of Elizabeth appears, visibly indignant. With an emphatic tone, she exclaims that all of this is absurd and demands to know when the full movie will be released. Moreover, she impatiently wonders where the scenes showing how they will have children are, shouting that she wants to see that immediately. Another version of Elizabeth intervenes, with a more reflective but equally curious air. Although she admits that she has always focused her attention on the wedding night, something she considers a bit vulgar, she can't help but confess that she is also intrigued by how this relationship will develop. Another spectator comments that, upon closer observation, she considers Lepping a very kind and sweet person. She adds that a change of style from time to time wouldn't. Another person, visibly excited, mentions how intriguing the whole situation is. They wonder how it will be that they end up together in the end, leaving an aura of anticipation in the air. It's then that Grandma Elizabeth speaks up. With her warm but firm voice, she announces that the trailer has come to an end, and that, unfortunately, the temporary ticket she possesses is about to expire. Before leaving, Grandma Elizabeth offers one last piece of advice. She reminds them that in each world, Lepping and Elizabeth have their own unique destiny. With a wise and serene gaze, she asks her other version not to rush. "Just follow your heart," she insists, leaving a profound reflection in the air. Elizabeth tries to ask one last question, her mind filled with doubts about the unique destiny the grandmother mentioned. However, she fails to finish her sentence, as in the blink of an eye, she feels she has returned to the place where it all began. On the other hand, she observes Amelia struggling to stay on her feet. She seems to be battling a severe headache, which causes concern in Lepping, who quickly approaches Elizabeth. In a worried tone, he asks her to look at Amelia, explaining that she doesn't seem well and wondering if she might be allergic to nuts. It is then that the Queen, with her characteristic majesty, decides to intervene. Focusing deeply, she uses her powerful healing spell. However, the little dragon girl let out a piercing scream, manifesting the intense pain coursing through her head. Lepping, alarmed by the scene, asked worriedly what was happening. The Queen, with a serious expression, explained that she had overestimated Amelia's abilities and that the situation was more complicated than they had anticipated. A bit nervous and seeking answers, Lepping dared to ask if there was any possible solution. In his mind, he began speculating if the little dragon girl might be suffering from a nut allergy. The Queen, with a tone of resignation, responded that there was no immediate solution. Everything depended solely on Amelia and her ability to overcome the situation. Reflecting to herself, the Queen believed that Lepping had used the nut synchronization to stimulate memory areas in Amelia's brain, managing to reactivate dormant memories. However, the real problem was that Amelia was unable to fully recover the missing fragments of her memory or fill the gaps left in her mind. These empty memory fragments were like thorns piercing Amelia's mind, causing a deep and constant discomfort. The Queen added that despite her efforts to locate Amelia's memories, searching all over the world without success, she hadn't been able to find them. This led her to conclude that there was nothing more they could do to help her. Lepping, saddened by the situation, approached Amelia and, with regret in his eyes, apologized to her while extending his hand to comfort her. However, that simple gesture provoked an unexpected reaction. For Amelia, Lepping's movement evoked a deep fear, the overwhelming memory of being dominated. That feeling of terror caused the memories the elder was trying to observe to completely vanish, as if they had dissolved into thin air. Confused and worried, the elder began to wonder if Amelia's memory files had been recovered somehow, or if the Queen had managed to discover that hidden place where they resided. Though he struggled to understand what had happened, deep down, he knew it seemed like an insurmountable challenge, something bordering on the impossible. On the other hand, the little dragon girl cried out desperately, calling for her master, begging for help as her tears flowed endlessly. Filled with fear, she flew, trying to escape Lepping, not knowing what else to do. In her desperation, she ended up crashing head-on into her master's imposing figure, whose majestic stance stopped her dead in her tracks. The impact was so strong that the little dragon girl fainted completely into Elizabeth's arms, who held her delicately, as if she were a precious treasure. Elizabeth, seeing the scene, slightly furrowed her brow. In her mind, she began to piece together the events and reached an unsettling conclusion. The hero had undoubtedly used the power of the rule to take Amelia's sealed memories. She recalled how in the past he showed no interest in getting involved in matters he considered trivial, but now, for some reason beyond her understanding, he had made an exception. Meanwhile, Lepping, visibly ashamed, deeply apologized, acknowledging that everything that had happened was his fault. However, Elizabeth didn't seem to pay immediate attention to his words. With a calm but determined gesture, she activated a teleportation spell to send Amelia back to the contract space, a place where she could rest and recover. Before disappearing, the Queen asked him not to worry. Since Amelia was able to endure it, that's why she sent her there. The hero, somewhat relieved, silently nods and accepts her words. However, he cannot help but stand in front of Elizabeth, uneasy, searching for something more to say. On her part, Elizabeth stares at him intently for several seconds, analyzing him as if trying to decipher some hidden enigma in his eyes. The silence between them becomes increasingly heavy, almost unbearable. They exchange glances in a strange game of expectations and doubts, until Lepping finally breaks the tension by asking if she doesn't think the sky is especially clear tonight, causing a slight blush to appear on his face. Elizabeth, surprised by the sudden change of topic, confirms it while also blushing. All of this is observed by both Wang Kai and Alpha, who cannot look away. Alpha, with a somewhat disappointed tone, comments that his plan was only to scare her into regaining her memories, but concludes that if he does it, it's boring and basic. On the other hand, if Lepping does it, it's something impressive and admirable. The little dog, upon hearing these words, nods and reaffirms that this is obvious, questioning Alpha on how he could even compare himself to his master, clearly demonstrating his respect and loyalty to Lepping. Suddenly, something strange begins to happen to Alpha. His expression changes as he notices a message appearing in front of him. Someone was persistently calling him, accompanied by a warning that a punishment awaited if he chose to ignore the summons. This warning deeply unsettles him, causing him to lose his balance and fall off the wall where he was sitting. His fall does not go unnoticed by the dog, who looks alarmed at what has happened. Alpha begins to complain, clutching his head and exclaiming that the noise is unbearable. He cries out in desperation, describing an intense pain invading him to the point of feeling as if his head is about to explode. Fortunately, Wang Kai keeps his calm and acts quickly. He pulls out something he was carrying, a pair of noise-canceling headphones. Without hesitation, he carefully places them over Alpha's ears. The reaction is immediate. Alpha begins to relax almost instantly, falling asleep. Meanwhile, Wang Kai watches over him, ensuring that his friend is safe and able to rest. Additionally, he comments that if it's about the noise, the best option is to use that. However, he quickly questions what is happening since his sensors are not detecting any unusual sounds. Despite his uncertainty, he decides the wisest course of action is to take Alpha to the workshop for a full checkup. He effortlessly lifts him as if he were a feather, showcasing his strength and skill. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the Queen begins to leave. Before taking her first step, she turns around and, in a serious tone, tells him that if he has nothing else to add, she will leave first. With each step she takes, the distance between them increases, and her silhouette gradually fades into the distance, showing not a hint of doubt or hesitation to stop. Already at a considerable distance, her thoughts overwhelm her. She considers how naive he is for not doing anything to stop her, and she cannot help but wonder if he truly will not pursue her. She knows well that in other worlds, her version of Lepping would be much more proactive, more determined, and less passive. On his part, Lepping seems trapped in a labyrinth of thoughts. The reason for his apparent immobility is the voices in his mind, multiple miniature versions of himself, the mini Leppings, who will not stop talking. Each represents an intrusive thought that further complicates his ability to act. One suggested that he should go after her without hesitation. Another, more reserved, asked if he wasn't afraid she would leave forever and never return. Yet another chimed in, warning him that if he didn't pursue her, he would surely regret it for the rest of his life. A small, timid whisper, full of reproach, called him a coward. Meanwhile, the one sitting on his shoulder, like an unavoidable weight, reminded him that once he spoke clearly, there would be no turning back. Finally, a more direct voice, though laden with concern, asked him if he was truly afraid of being left without protection, or if he truly feared never seeing Elizabeth again. It was then, amidst that storm of thoughts, that the true impulse emerged. He clung to a single idea, a decision that resonated strongly within him. Even if he was rejected, he didn't want to carry the regret of having silenced his feelings for the rest of his life. For her part, the queen wondered if it would really be her who would take the initiative, unable to believe she would have to do such a thing. She was deep in thought when she remembered that, in every world, there was a version of herself and Lepping that followed their own destiny. With that certainty, she decided to follow her heart and began activating her teleportation magic. However, just at that moment, Lepping called out to her, asking her to wait a moment. She stopped and he, visibly nervous, looked at her, asking if she hadn't asked him before if he liked her. His voice trembled slightly, as if he were questioning something he dared not confess. The queen, a bit flushed, turned halfway around, looking at him with curiosity. She hadn't expected that question, and her mind was filled with confusion. Lepping, for his part, continued speaking, though at a slower pace, as if he were processing his own emotions. He said that without realizing it, they had lived together for over a year. But it wasn't until that moment that he realized how vast the gap between them was. He felt small and vulnerable upon becoming aware of the differences between them, what it meant to be a queen and what he represented, a man marked by the fame of being a legendary hero. He confessed to himself that even though they called him a hero, he understood nothing about swords or magic. He knew he wasn't worthy of standing at her level. But then, as if that confession wasn't enough, his words changed. He said that, if it were possible, he would like to live a normal life with her. His words stirred a strange feeling within the queen. For a moment, she thought he was merely trying to emphasize his own role as the creator, as if he were deigning to share a simple life with her. But then Lepping confessed that he was a homebody, had no experience in love, didn't know how to make a girl happy, and due to his status, he didn't dare express his thoughts. However, he didn't think she would find out. And now that she had asked, he could no longer escape. His voice began to tremble as he pronounced Elizabeth. But upon closing his eyes, he found the strength to shout his confession, "Yes, I like you, Elizabeth." When he opened his eyes, he felt that he had finally said it, but before he could continue his thoughts, something unexpected happened. The queen jumped on him, giving him a comforting hug. He, completely flushed, called out to her, but at that moment, he realized it was futile. The two began to rise, flying together through the air. The moon, large and luminous, bore witness to the scene, watching silently as Elizabeth whispered to him that it was nothing, that she was simply following the deepest desires of her heart. Lepping, filled with curiosity, asked what that meant, but before he could finish his sentence, he was met with a passionate kiss from the queen, leaving him speechless and breathless. He, still stunned by her action, could only repeat over and over that he liked her. This time, the response he received was similar, as Elizabeth, covering her face with her hands, confessed that she felt the same way about him. However, before he could fully process her words, she disappeared before his eyes, as if she had never been there. Upon seeing and hearing this, he wondered if for a moment he was truly dreaming. Disbelief overtook him, but soon he realized he was in a very high place, making him question how he would manage to get back. We've finished this week's chapter. If you've made it this far, comment on what you thought of the comic. Also, don't forget to subscribe and give it a like so YouTube continues recommending us. Thanks to everyone who watched until here. See you in the next video. But before that, I'm leaving you with the next chapter and a comic that I'm sure you'll enjoy.